What up, party people? Welcome back to another episode of Controversial Album Covers. This is episode number 19. And here it is, Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland. It was released in the United States on October 16th, 1968, and 9 days later in the UK. By mid-November, to become number 1 on the US Billboard charts and peaked at number 6 in the UK. It is his third and last album before Jimi Hendrix died in 1970, and it is inarguably one of the greatest rock records of all time. I said inarguably, so I don't want to hear about it in the comments. Okay, so here it is. There's all sorts of issues with this jacket. So here's the US version. And so the story goes, Jimi Hendrix had sent a letter to Reprise and told them exactly what he wanted. What he wanted was Linda McCartney, who was at the time, her name was actually Linda Eastman. She was a photographer, and he wanted her to take a picture of him with a bunch of kids at the Alice in Wonderland sculpture in Central Park. And Reprise said, not so much, kids don't sell records, so we're going to go ahead and do this, which is a picture of him performing at the Seville Theater, and it was taken by Carl Ferris. Now, there's some argument as to he didn't get the letter to Reprise in time, and they were under the gun, and yada, 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 but both sides of it, Hendrix didn't agree with that, but it is what it is. Now, that's the US cover. This is the UK cover. On the front of it, you'll see that there are 19 naked ladies when it's all pulled out, with an image of him in the cover, in the inside. What had happened was, same thing, Linda McCartney had sent a picture to Track Records, who put it out in the UK the first round, and it was a picture of a little black kid and a little white kid, and they were playing together, and I was like, kumbaya, and yada, yada, yada. Track said, kids don't sell records. Apparently kids don't sell records, remember that. And they said, we're going to go ahead and do our own thing, so they hired David Montgomery, and David Montgomery is the photographer who did this. He says, now there's a very interesting article and an interview with him in the 2022 Classic Rock magazine. You can find it on loudersound.com. I highly recommend reading it. It's too long for me to read the whole thing, but I'm going to summarize it for you. He basically said once they got that picture of Linda McCartney, they said no, so they hired him. Well, he was working days, so they did a night shoot. And before that Thursday night shoot, they went to a bunch of UK clubs and picked up a bunch of women and said, hey, we're going to go do a photo shoot with Jimi Hendrix. You want to be in it? And they're like, yeah, totally. They're like, great, come on down. So they set up the shoot, they tell them to get topless, and they're like, I don't think I want to do that. They said, okay, fine, we'll pay you $5, or 5 pounds. They said, okay, we'll get topless for 5 pounds. So then they get them all set up, and they get the pictures taken, and they take the Polaroids, you know, just to get the lighting and make sure everything's right. And one of the producers for the record said, you know, it'd probably be better if they didn't have any clothes on, you know what I'm saying? And the women at first were like, absolutely not, we're not taking all of our clothes off for this stupid photo shoot. Jimi Hendrix isn't even here. They said, we'll pay you 3 more pounds. They said, okay, we'll do it. So now they're totally naked for 8 pounds, and they do the photo shoot, and ironically, Hendrix doesn't show up, which is why the ladies are holding his albums in it, because Hendrix never showed. It's kind of a running theme. He didn't necessarily show up or do what he was supposed to do on time. But once David Montgomery finished the photo shoot, he said he loved it because he uses this weird color process that made all of their skin tones pop, and it was bright and vibrant and beautiful. And when he sent it over, he was totally happy with it. Well, when it came out, it was this. It was really dark and dingy, and they all looked kind of meh. And he called up the art director, who was David King, and David King said, yeah, you know what? Yours was really nice, but it was a little too much. We wanted a little more rock and roll. We wanted a little more gritty and a little more dark. Well, apparently he's the only one that wanted a little more gritty and dark, because everybody else was like, geh. 2 of the models later quoted as saying, one of them said, everyone looked great, but the picture made us look old and tired. We were trying to look sexy, but it didn't work out. Another one of the models said, it made us look like a load of old tarts. It's rotten. Now, when it first came out, Jimi Hendrix was not super impressed with it. He thought it was a little disrespectful, and it's not really his thing, especially since he wanted 2 other things, which nobody went with. But it is Jimi Hendrix, and he did later come out and say, you know, he said, he was initially unhappy, and he said he eventually warmed up to it. I didn't know a thing about English sleeves, he told the British music publication Melody Maker in '68, according to Rolling Stone magazine. He said, still, you know me, I dug it in a way, except I think it's sad the way the photographers made the girls look ugly. Some of them are nice-looking chicks, but the photographer distorted the photograph with the fisheye lens or something. That's mean. It made the girls look bad, but it's not my fault. So there you have it. Apparently Jimi Hendrix was not happy with this. He actually wasn't happy with another one of his album covers, which is coming up down the line as well. And I don't know why, but with this album, apparently all the record companies had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, because like I said, this is the U.S. cover. This is the German. This would be, if this was a U.S. cover. This is what the U.S. cover looked like. This is actually a German cover. This is the Polydor, which came out after the Trax one, and it's also the Trax one. But I think there's another cover where there's other images of Jimi Hendrix on it. So they just kind of like, whatever, we'll put whatever we want on it. In 2018, they did a 50th anniversary release of this album, and they used the actual cover that Hendrix wanted, and there it is. So there it is, Electric Ladyland. See if you have it. This is pretty tough to find in the U.S. I assume it's probably a whole lot more common in the U.K. When it came out, it was obviously, many dealers considered it pornographic and refused to sell it. Others flipped it inside out, so the gatefold was the picture was the inside and Jimi Hendrix's picture was on the outside. I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to refold my record. And on some cases, they actually just sold it in a brown paper bag or brown wrapper. So there it is. Thank you so much for watching. As always, Spatula City Records, buy 9 get 1 free, free record or free shipping on orders of $50 or more, and all of our records are ultrasonically clean before shipping.